Hello solo role players, it's PJ here calling in from the road. I'm away for a couple of days with work. And since we've been having so much fun with Mythic Bastionland over on the Patreon, I wanted to give you all a little preview of some of the content that we're doing over there. Today I have for you a sneak peek of a Patreon episode, which is the first actual play I did of Mythic Bastionland. Mythic Bastionland is our book club book for this month, and over in our Discord, everyone's sharing their realms and talking about the different ways they're soloing this great little game. And in a few weeks, we're going to all get together and talk about it. It's great fun. It's a great little community. If you want to get involved in that and more, and hear way more of these actual play episodes, almost every game that I've played on the main channel, I've continued playing over on the Patreon episodes. If you want to hear more of that stuff, please do go and check out Patreon/SoloRolePlayers. If not, that's totally cool. I really appreciate you being here anyway, and in that case, just enjoy this as a bonus episode. So here, I hope you enjoy my first proper actual play session of Mythic Bastionland. Hello and welcome back to the Solo Role Players podcast. I am your host PJ, and today on the show I am sitting down and actually playing in the realm that I have just created, a little game that I did a first look of recently. I have a turtley night, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to actually play Mythic Bastionland. Alrighty, so what I have done, it is a few days since I did the first look. What I have done now this morning is I have rolled up my little realm, or started to, and sort of made some solo role player decisions along the way. I'm not going to go through the whole process, but it was pretty easy to tweak it for solo role playing. It says start with a few holdings, like a few civilian type places, start with a few lakes, start with a river, and it also says start with barriers, and a sixth of the hexes that you have should be some kind of impassable barrier, which I think is a cool thing for hex exploration in general. Better when you're a GM running it for other people, because then they get somewhere and they try to leave this way and you say you can't, it's blocked. Let me just check something quickly actually, because my idea was I started rolling up where these barriers were, and then I realized actually it's better if I just go into every hex, and since it should be a sixth of the hexes of the total realm should have a barrier, I'll just roll a d6 every hex and see if there is a barrier. Having just one is not as interesting, so let me see if it actually says only a single side of the hex. Hang on. One or more of their edges. Okay. Good. So I'm going to do that. I did end up placing a couple before I made that decision, and that was good. That helped me when I was placing the lakes and stuff. I got a waterfall, which I called a barrier, a few other bits and pieces. So, yeah, that was kind of nice. And then I drew up some holdings, just randomly rolling with 2d12s where sort of things are. And what I really, really like, they did this in 2d6 realm. What I love, since I'm not much of a drawer, but I want to be able to stand looking at my own maps. I love that they have down, that Chris has put down the bottom of the page here, just little drawings of what the different types of hexes might look like. Now, sometimes that bothers me because they're in a style that goes against the kind of style I want for that game. In this case, it's just about perfect. I really like it. It's cartoony enough to be easy to draw, but without it feeling silly. Mine look a little silly, but better than I would have been able to do on my own. So, the next thing you have to do then is, I filled in a river, and then it says place 6 curses throughout the realm in remote places. And so I started rolling that up, and then I realized I will just put them far away from stuff. So I've done that, numbered them 1 to 6. I haven't rolled up what they actually are yet, and that is what I'm going to do right now. On this creating a realm sheet, it is really nice to see that there is some info on there as well. It gives you some of the instructions and also has a place to write in what these myths are. So we're going to roll up some myths. Rolling a d12 and a d6. The first myth we get, in fact, the first one we know is the one we rolled up in the first look, which was the Spectre. So I'm going to call that the furthest one away from me, because the idea is that that's our main one, and the others are just sort of influencing the land. So it's either going to be number 3 or number 6. I am going to roll a d6. On a 1 to 3, it's a 3. It's a 6. So it is number 6. Number 6 is our Spectre myth. Now rolling up what number 1 is. That is a 6 and a 6 gives us the tree. Not all that grows is good and fair, not all from above an answered prayer. Ooh, the tree, number 1. Also writing in the page number as a reference, because we're going to be coming back here a lot. Number 2 hex myth is going to be the bull. The blessed are bound for tragic end, while jealous eyes make wrath their friend. If anyone wants me never to read any poetry on the show again, please let me know. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Then we have the glade. Amid the still and halt and hush, a poison blooms in grove a lush. The spire, the harp, and the spectre that we had earlier, which I just need to find so that I can note the page number. It was a 3 something. 3, 4? Okay, so remembering that we are not an errant knight, we are what's the terminology? A courtier, a mature knight's gallant. We have 2d6 guard. Now, guard is kind of like almost like your defense stamina. It's the stuff that goes down before you start taking actual damage. I rolled really low on that. I only got a 3. We have a place in court at the seat of power. I'm changing this a little bit. I like the idea that I'm somewhere off on my own little holding. I have a little tower somewhere else, and there's probably a town next door. And I'm kind of like a local mayor knight, more than being part of the seat of holding. Technically, I have a seat on the council on the other end of the land. However, years go by where I'm sitting back in my little holding, doing business of running a small village. I don't know what my personality is yet. I think probably we're pretty decent. And so if we remember back to the first look, what has happened is news has come in of some strange happenings in the middle of the realm. And we have been asked by the power of holding to send out a knight. And we decide in our slightly aging state that we are sick of pushing pens or quills, and we want to go out and have one last adventure before we can happily retire. So we set out with our little squire, yet as yet unnamed squire, because I still don't have a good naming table on hand. Next little design project I'm working on. James. And I am the knight, the turtle knight, Florius the Third. And their ultimate fate was, I like that you can end your character sheet right at the top. Okay, so I am just kind of ignoring steeds at the moment. I'm assuming we're riding horses, but I don't really want to be bothered to look into the rules of horses and stuff and a whole extra block of stats. I just want to keep going. Not that it's too much, but anyway. So the goal is, because this is going to be a single session, it might be 2 sessions, but I'm going to say the goal is to solve this main myth, and the other myths there are just sort of affecting the land around it, which I'm pretty sure is the intended way of playing anyway. So I'm just going to start out by traveling. We have set out I'm hand-waving some stuff, and we are just going to travel because I want to start unlocking these hexes and just getting a feel for how this works. We travel across a hex. We exit. We have a vague inclination that it is somewhere between here, our little tower, and the seat of power, which is on the opposite diagonal corner of the map. There is a big river cutting across the middle, so I'm just going to roll randomly where that bridge is, which we would know because we travel back and forth a lot. So I'm rolling 2d12s here. I get 6, 6. That's nice. So bang on in the middle, kind of, we have the bridge. And so we set out into our first hex. Following these travel rules as we go. When ending a phase in the wilderness, there are things like seasons in the year, and the spring, the green season, begins with the Feast of the Sun. I'm not getting into all that sort of stuff for now. I'm doing a pretty surface level feeling kind of a thing. So the day has 3 phases, morning, afternoon, and night. Travel says... Okay, so we can technically travel 3 hexes in a day. Presumably, because one of the phases is night, we would have to sleep. So let's move into our morning phase, and let's just get an impression from our spark tables. Well, first we'll see, it does say that usually you roll at the end of each phase to do a wilderness roll, when ending a phase in the wilderness. Okay, so let's just say our first phase. We get a 4, which means that there is something here. And encounter the hex's landmark, otherwise all clear. I'm going to say, and I don't know if the rules say this specifically, I don't think it does. We have, down the bottom of our realm map, we have 12 land types. So rivers, crags, mountains, forests, that kind of thing. And then we have 4 of our landmarks. I believe the vassals, the civilization stuff, is technically a landmark. Okay, so there are 6 types of landmarks: dwellings, sanctums, monuments, hazards, curses, and ruins. I'm going to roll a d6 to see which kind of landmark it is. And that says it's a ruin. Interesting. I think that, and let's go to the tree here. I don't know. I'm wondering, are things so twisty that when we come out of our little tower through our village that we know is our normal village, is it currently a ruin because we're being twisted in time somehow? Or do we happen to just be in a tower that is in a bit of a ruin? I'm not sure. I think my initial gut is that it's weirder than that, and that we step out and we step out into this desolate place that is barely recognizable as our village, as our little town that we control, and we know that something is up. I'm going to flick over to our nearest landmark, which is the tree, and see what kind of influence that might be having. It says that the ruin for the tree is a smashed jail. Okay, let's do this differently. So I walk out on my horse with my sore back and my little squire, and we ride through the town. And at the center of town, there is a bit of a commotion going on, and that is because in the center of the town stands proudly the old jail, which has been abandoned and haunted for as long as anyone can remember, and people rarely go there. It's sort of, people create a wide berth around it. It is just this sort of abandoned, ignored, disused place that people whisper about, and when bad things happen, they blame the spirits of the jail. And that jail, which has not been touched or entered in as long as anyone can remember, is completely smashed open by some kind of a force greater than any one individual could have impacted. And so that's the first sign that we realize something is wrong, and all of our townsfolk are crowding around and whispering and fearful and talking about what is going on, and how no one heard anything in the night, no one was awoken by anything, everyone just awoke to this scene of this destroyed jail. Interesting. And the people do seem relieved when we ourselves swear for them to calm down and never fear. Knight Felonius III will head out and solve the mysterious problems. Now, I'm not sure exactly which direction Knight Felonius III is going, and so I'm going to roll one of 2 hexes, which are tending towards the direction we need to go, just to see where we actually head up. 1 to 3 is the uppermost one, which is a roll of a 2. So we continue along through into the next hex, into our afternoon phase, and we check here for another wilderness check. And yes, there is another wilderness check. We rolled a 4. So again, we're going to roll randomly on what the landmark is. What I would like is a list of landmarks. Oh yeah, there is a list of landmarks right there on the Creating a Realm sheet. Excellent. So, rolling which sort of landmark we have now, and that is a dwelling on the other side. So maybe, in fact, the old jail stood slightly outside of town, although these are sort of take a day to travel. So no, we have another dwelling. This is sort of the farmlands outside. And let's see what sort of dwelling. Now, I could flick randomly, or I could go with whatever the myth says, because it's close to that myth. I'm going to say, I don't know what the actual rule is. I'm going to say that it is more likely to be one related to the curse. Doing my standard 2d20 at the moment, yes, Oracle. So anything under 10 is yes, that's what it is. And we have one thing under 10. The red is higher. So it is related to the myth of the tree. And it's a tiny market. So this is the farmers' markets that sort of happen outside of our little village here. And it is red. There is unrest and aggression. Maybe as we walk through, there is a fight happening, or some kind of not quite a brawl, but some clearly large argument going on between multiple groups of people. The sellers in this little market are claiming that the customers have been stealing their goods because they were talking and doing their normal selling, and all of a sudden a lot of their goods have disappeared, and there's a big fight breaking out with pitchforks and threats and all that kind of thing. Nothing has happened yet, and so my knight rides in, and he tries to calm things down. Now we're going to get to make a first proper roll, and there is a process for this, which is an action procedure. So let's just go through this process so we sort of learn it as well. What we have, number 1, is the intent. What are you trying to do? We are trying to calm down the people, maybe tell them of this mysterious thing, if that's what we think it is, which of course it is. And we're trying to calm down the people and just reduce or prevent any injury or harm to who are essentially our people. So what makes it possible? This is number 2 is leverage. What makes it possible? We are the knight. So we are well known. We are the ruler of this, at least the nearby settlement. The farmers are probably partially part of us, a part of our people, but not necessarily. Like, we're just the mayor. We're not necessarily their lord or anything like that. But it does make it possible to have the influence. Would it use a resource, cause virtue loss, or have a side effect? I think it would cause virtue loss if we are unsuccessful. So that is the risk. If we can't quell this very small little quell this very small little unrest, then we really have been tucked away in our tower too long, and the people think less of us than we even thought. So that is what the cost is going to be. It could reduce our virtue. I will just double check the specifics of virtue. Okay, so our virtues are literally our stats. So yeah, I think it could have a chance of reducing our spirit. Okay, so that is the roll that we're going to make. Number 4 is the risk, which is losing the virtue. And in extreme cases, perhaps even maybe the squire getting caught up in in physically trying to stop things, and then there may be a risk of harm. And then number 5 is the impact, show the consequences. Okay, so let us do our very first roll. A roll or a save is beautifully simple. It is simply rolling a D20 under our stat, my favorite kind of roll. Our spirit is 11. Now, are we do we have any kind of a bonus we could use because we are like advantage? Because I mean, come on, we are the mayor. Does not look like it, other than combat. Okay, straight roll it is. We are rolling a d20, trying to roll under 11. We roll a 5, so we get it, happily. As we start to ride in on our horse, which has, you know, like little armored face on it, people sort of start to hush a little bit. They're still arguing, but they sort of tamp themselves down and sort of back off. Not back off, but they kind of just settle down a little bit. And in the end, there are 2 people left shouting at each other. And I dismount my horse and I step in and say, "Good people, what appears to be the problem here? This is no way to behaving on such a beautiful, crazy, weird day." In fact, it's not a beautiful day, is it? Because everything around a myth is influenced by the nearest myths. And one of the things about the tree, which I'm just sort of glazing my eyes over, is something to do with like cloud stuff. So I think it's very misty here today. And so we sort of step in and we say, what exactly is the problem here? And these 2 people, I could now roll on the spark tables to see what kind of people they are. In this case, it doesn't matter for me at the moment. They both put forward their case, and I say, listen, I know that the good people of these lands wouldn't be lying like this. I have seen strange things happen already. My squire will come and he will take notes about what items have been missing or this kind of thing, and we will resolve it later, but I'm sure it has something to do with the quest that I am on. So please have patience and let me get on with my job. I will stay here the night if someone could offer me a tent, and my squire will make the relevant notes, and we will get to the bottom of this. Everyone calm down. Round of drinks on me in the local tavern, the little pop-up tavern here, for everyone. Shopping is over today, so on and so forth. So that's what we do. We get a night's sleep, and we sort of listen to some of the rumors that have been going around as well. People talk about having seen these strange shapes in the clouds popping up, this kind of thing. And it's all very unsettling, what we hear. But we have managed to quell the unrest for now. People are now just scared and not angry at each other. And so we go through to the next day, and we continue our journey. Following the road, which I have just established, is heading down to the south now, getting closer to this curse of the tree. Moving into our new hex, let's see what we have here. We have a 2, so finally there is not an actual landmark here. Now I'm going to roll up what this sort of wilderness is. I'm moving into some wilderness area. It says on the sheet here that you should draw clusters of D12 hexes of the same terrain type. So that's what I'm going to do now. This building the map as part of playing is really fun, rather than just doing it in advance for a GM, which would also be fun, but, you know, time consuming. So I'm rolling 2 D12s. 1 is for the wilderness type, 1 is for its size. That's huge. So we have an 8, which is meadows. Okay, good. That makes sense. Branching out here, we have a large area of meadows. I'm just going to do the next immediate 8 hexes or so. So the meadows stretch all the way down to our number 1 myth here. And I'm just going to continue traveling across unless something draws me into the mist. And I'm going to ask an oracle question now, is it currently very foggy, cloudy? Like, is that affecting my ability to navigate? And that is a yes, with the red being higher. So, with the blue being higher. So yes, although it is springtime and summer, as we set out the next morning, there is a very unusual fog sitting in the air. It is sort of reminiscent of this cloud that we saw, this mist that we saw in the village, but as we move further into the meadows, it is really quite thick and cloying, and not cloying because the blue is higher, so sort of very wintry feeling. This is not the weather of springtime. It is dark. We have to have a torch even during the day just to navigate. And so we're going to have to do a roll to see if we even head in the right direction. And if we don't head in the right direction, then we're going to start being drawn accidentally towards this myth. Oh, this is getting interesting. Doing another test, we are going to have to do a clarity roll, which is keen instinct, lucid mind, and shrewd eyes. So the risk of failure is that we get lost and we start getting drawn off the path towards the myth. Rolling a d20 now to see if we can get under our clarity rating, which is only a 9. Let's see. We get a 7, so we do manage to proceed along the way. We know these roads pretty well, and although we are very surprised at how difficult it is to traverse them, we have wisdom and age and experience in our favor, and so we sort of ignore the feeling that we're going off track and just trust our instinct that we are in fact heading the right way, and we continue along into the next hex. And I'm just sort of drawing my path here as I go, because not only is it my path, this is the actual path that runs from here all the way to the other holding. And we know that somewhere along that way there is going to be this myth. But maybe we've actually been called to report to the holding first, and we'll discover the myth along the way. Not sure. That was our morning phase. As we move into the afternoon, we miss the dice tray and we get a 4. So we have another landmark here, rolling a d6 to see which it is. This one is a curse. Excellent. So this says, blights on the land that throw you off course. If you travel in the next phase, it counts as traveling blind. Oh, interesting. Oh, I didn't see that there was actual... Okay, there's actually rules to each of these landmarks. The ruin says remnants of the past echo of the future. These hint at a random myth not currently active in the realm, though it may return. I didn't see that. That doesn't matter. Our ruins are fine. So the curse is, if you travel the next phase, it's going to count as traveling blind. We are... let's see at how this curse manifests. I'm going to look... I could flick to... Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to flick to a random one, and then I'm going to flick to the tree curse and see which one sort of makes most sense. See if they both make sense, because that's a fun thing to try. Random curse says mossy air. Okay. And then our tree curse, nightmare fungus. Okay, let's go with the nightmare fungus. What on earth is nightmare fungus? That's awful. It sounds very Dolmen wood. So I'm looking at my spark table here to see if I can get a picture for this nightmare fungus. And I'm going to go with otherworldly. So there are 9 tables. And I'm going to pick one and roll a d12. I'm picking otherworld. I could do like flora, but that's... I don't know. Let's call it 50-50, whether it's flora or otherworldly. Or I just use them both. I'm going to use them both. So I'm rolling 2 d12s. For flora, I get aromatic. And for otherworldly, sweet. Okay, that goes together. So we can't necessarily see this fungus, but there is this intense smell, this tense aroma that comes into the air throughout the afternoon. And it is really... Twice I've had to go and pull my squire back, who started wandering off in the wrong direction, and have to sort of pull him back on track. And because this says as a curse, if you travel the next phase, it counts as traveling blind. I think the smell is it's sort of a bit psychedelic in a way. It's sort of affecting... I feel it. I've managed to go and pull back the squire a couple of times, and I feel it, my mind's starting to be affected. And it's an experience I haven't experienced before, other than, drinking too much mead or something like that. And so I'm going to have to do a test to see if here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to test to see if I can withstand the allure of this nightmare fungus. If I don't, I'm going to black out and wake up a few hexes to the east where the nightmare tree is. And if I do pass it, I'm just going to do the traveling blind rules, because that's what it says on a curse. So trying to resist this stuff, let's look at our stats again and what they mean. I guess it's spirit. Lucid mind. Okay, clarity again. So this is another roll for a 9. We need to get under a 9 if we can resist this stuff. And we get a 6, rolling well today. So we do, again, we draw on our experience and our wisdom, and although we're starting to get wobbly, and whatnot. We decide I find a landmark that I'm familiar with on the path, which is maybe some signposting or something like that I'm sure is real, and I've touched it, and we're going to make camp here to see what happens. And during camp, I'm going to say that we get an omen, because I want to see how the omens work. The closest omen, let me just check that's how it works. Okay, so all it says in the omens is in the myths and omens, each myth lists its omens and cast of beings. Entering or exploring a myth's hex always reveal its next omen. Whatever. I like the idea that these things happen in order, and I just want to experience an omen now, so that's what I'm going to do. 6-6, back to the tree again, is the first omen is on the horizon, twisting branches of a great tree, black and blue. So I think we dream this. I think we're camping by this spot that we know, and in our slightly hallucinogenic state, we dream this vision of the horizon as we know it, and we have seen many times traveling back and forth to the seat of power. But now on the horizon, there is an impossibly large tree, silhouette of a tree reaching up into the sky. Think like, I don't know, Breath of the Wild, and you have that cool moment where you realize there's a big tree somewhere in the distance and you want to get over there, that kind of thing. And with that in our mind, we wake up with this image seared into our mind. And the next phase, as it said based on Curse, is going to be traveling blind. Although it says if you travel the next phase, and we actually slept. So I don't think we're traveling blind. Do we want to go and investigate this tree? I'm going to look up the rules for traveling blind, because that's part of learning the game. So let's say we are traveling blind. And if it doesn't look interesting, I will just keep going. Okay. So traveling blind, we just roll a d6. We either don't get anywhere, go to a hex left or right of where we wanted to be, or progress as planned. I think I know. Do I have a sense that this tree stuff is not actually my mission, not actually this spectre thing? I think like I probably do have a sense of that. Is that an oracle roll? Yeah, I'm going to have the oracle roll, because it's a yes oracle. That's what I want to happen, so I'm checking. Do I have a sense that this tree thing is a distraction away from my true quest? That is a yes, with the blue being a 20, so very high. So that is my, and this reveals a little bit about my personality, I think. This is my ability to really let go of all emotion and focus coldly on the practical knowledge and wisdom that I have. I am not a person who is easily swayed by temper or emotions or anything like that. Very collected and planned and strategic mind. So we know that no, this has not got to do with our quest. I need to get to the seat of power as quickly as possible. I need to forge ahead. However, still feeling a little dizzy, having these ideas of trees in our head and it being incredibly misty, let us travel blind, and we get a 3, which says we drift a hex to the left on a 2 or a hex to the right on a 3. So we rolled a 3. We are trying to follow the path to the bridge, and we do miss. There's a bend in the path that goes towards the bridge, and we miss it, and we do end up 1 hex off track. We have to see, do we encounter anything in this hex? No, we don't. So I'm going to do a spark table for just the mood of what is going on now in this hex, and we sort of realize we're lost. Rolling a d12 on the land table gives me a grey, and our landscape was crags. So we realize we're lost when we see that in this meadow, which we're not sure we've ever been off the path this way, and so we're not sure if it's real or not, but there are these like crags, which according to the map is like a half hill, half cliff. And I know this is already meadow, and that's fine. It is also crags. And we realize that is what sort of gives it away, that we are lost a little bit and we have to figure out how to get back on track. Going to have to do another navigation roll here, and if we go the wrong way this time, we are in fact going to end up at the tree. Despite our best efforts, can we do it? 2. We do manage. We needed a 9, we got a 2. Rolling lovely and low today, PJ. So again, with our experience, we managed to get back onto the path and end up at the bridge. Skipping ahead a little bit, we're crossing the bridge here, moving into the next hex. I'm going to roll up what kind of wilderness this is now as we have moved onto the other side. I'm going to roll and see if I like the answer. That is a 9, which is a bog. Okay, this is fine. We can do a bog. It's nice and creepy. And a bog is a single hex. So on the other end of the bridge, there is a bog. Was it always there? Doing a straight 50-50 roll here. Using a d6. 1 to 3 is yes, the bog was always there. Yes, the bog was always there. So this is always the unpleasant part of the trip. Due to the foot traffic and being close to the river, you just have to get through a bit of a bog here. Going through this bog means that we both have to get off our horses. Is the fog still present? I think now that we're moving away from the tree, the fog sort of starts to clear up a little bit. And we start getting a little bit of influence of our next myth, the bull. And rolling to see if we have a landmark here. No, we don't. I think we already did that. So there's nothing that's jumping out of me, except it says glittering spring. So I think maybe in the middle of this bog there is a strange pool of water which is looks clean. The rest of the boggy stuff around us is a horrible, filthy, tarry sort of a mush. And there's this one little pool that is sort of a glittering spring and appears to be very drinkable. I think I'm going to take some of this. I'm going to assess it again, use my clarity, I think it was, which is my instinct. Like, I know as the GM, as the solo role player, I know that this glittering spring has some kind of beneficial properties. I'm going to ask my oracle, does it have beneficial properties? Yes, it does with the blue hire. I think it keeps... The properties of this water is it keeps one calm and focused even when there is something influencing their mind. Okay, and I have a good feeling about this, or maybe I've seen it or smelled it or something like that before, and I'm wondering if I have the clarity to know that it is good, and will I take it? I roll another 2. So I do have the clarity, and I have this drinking horn, which makes anything taste delicious. It's a huge horn covered in berries, in the drawing of and the carvings of berries. So I quietly kneel down next to this pond and take a big scoop out. My drinking horn has a lid on it, which is very handy for carrying stuff. And I quietly tuck it into my belt and say, "Come on, we must onward," which we will do. Which direction is the path going now? It is going slightly more to the south. In which, so this is probably afternoon, not sure, doesn't really matter, in which there is another landmark. Rolling as a d6 to see what that landmark is. Now we have a hazard. Excellent. So we walk out of this bog and we get a hazard. The hazard for the bull is going to be red hail. So as the fog from the last day's journey starts to fade, all of a sudden there are still clouds in the sky, and as we're walking along, we sort of stop and we have a feeling, and then there is a little the sound of hail, like a little sprinkling sort of a sound bouncing off our armor, that kind of stuff, and then a little piece gets stuck, and we realize that it's spring. It shouldn't be hailing like this, and we look up, and actually the sky is clear, or more or less clear, and we feel this little sort of tingling, and we look down at our shoulder, and sort of stuck in between 2 pieces of the armor on our shoulder is this small red stone. We pick it up with our finger and we crumble it, and it's hard and doesn't crumble and does not melt. So this is not ice, this is not hail, this is something else. And because I want a combat at this stage, one is going to happen. I'm looking now at our cast, and it appears to me from when I looked at it the other day that the top cast is like the main villain or, main feature of the myth. I'm just going to go with the bottom cast here, which makes sense. It is winged fiends, bringers of sorrow. And so as we look up in this sort of clear sky but strange light, and through this sort of hail that is sprinkling down, we have these winged fiends flying down into a combat. They do not surprise us, however, because we were already cautious because of the hail coming down, and Feronius, what was his name? Florius. Florius III pulls out his big knight's shield, and he sort of holds it up against the sun and peeks out from behind it, and he says to his squire, James, come here and get behind me. James sort of cowers behind my legs a little bit, and we see the silhouettes of these winged fiends flying through the air. We can see a glinting off their bladed arms as they come down to attack. I have one stat block here. I'm going to say that this is the stat block for all of them. They have a guard of 5, which we're going to have to work down before we can do anything. I'm also going to say, making up a rule as I go, because they're flying, they are going to be harder to hit somehow. How am I going to do that? I think I need to pass to actually hit them out of the air. I'm going to need to pass a clarity roll. Pass a clarity roll. If I do hit them, however, they are on the ground, and then they are much easier to take out. So this is what happens. I tell him, I said, I'm going to try and bat one out of the sky. You jump on it if we get it to the ground, which means his dagger is not joining us at the moment, or maybe it is. I think he has a cudgel as well. I rolled up when I was looking at this actual squire rules. So yeah, let's say that. We all take a swing. I said, ready, I'll tell you when to go. We're going to take this first one that comes at us. And we all take a swing at the same time. He is using his D8 cudgel. I'm using my shield and my beak hammer to try and knock this thing out of the air. My shield is a D4. My beak hammer is a D6. And he has a cudgel, which is actually a D8. That's more powerful than mine even. Reminder for the combat rules, we roll all our dice together of everyone involved, which is really fun, I think, if you're in a group. And then we get to choose which one does damage, and if we use the other ones for other things. We rolled a 5, a 4, and a 2. Heading over to our feats, we're going to jump straight in with a feat because I think they're really fun. A feat is we can perform a gambit without using a die, which is focus, or we can deny, which is discard a damage die rolled against you or a nearby ally. I think we're going to do a deny feat because we're going to try and protect. It just makes sense narratively that we're trying to protect little James, and that's what we're going to do. So then I'm going to do a gambit, which is spend a die. I'm going to spend my 4 to bolster the attack. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Bolster the attack, which gives a +1 of the total damage. My damage is 5. I have 6. So that is going to take out their guard completely, which was 5, and 1 of their vigor. They have 8. And then it's going to be their turn. We get to remove one of their damage dice. So who are they attacking? Me or the knight? I think it's more likely they're attacking the knight because I'm behind a big shield, or the squire, I mean. So I'm asking my yes oracle, who are they attacking? Luigi. Grazie. Ja, dir auch. Die Frage ist, wo ist... Sorry, forgive me the interruption. Talking work contracts in German. And surprise, surprise, PJ is not so organized with the paperwork. Now, where were we? I asked a question. I rolled 2 7s. No, 7 and a 17. What was the question? I think it was, is it going for the squire? So yes. We roll then the 2d6 of these bladed fiends, the bladed arms of these winged fiends, and it's a 3 and a 6. So they swoop down to try and, they try to pick up the squire, they try to skewer him and pick him up. Because of my big shield, and because I did that deny move feat, earlier, I can discard a damage die rolled. I am, of course, going to discard the 6. He is then going to take 3 damage, 1 off his only guard, and then taking off some of his vigor. He is down to 8 hit points, or vigor points. And I now need to make a save to see if I become exhausted, or whatever the terminology is, and lose that feat for the day, doing a spirit save, and I succeed. I really like that idea. It's like Magic in old school games, where if I think it's DCC, you can keep doing spells all day long, as long as you pass them, and if you fail a spell, it's gone for the day, or forever, or something. And I really like that idea. You can kind of do these feats, and then eventually you're just going to not be able to do any anymore. So it's a bit of that temptation of push and pull, risk and reward, which is always a bit of fun in that combat. Decision. We managed to batter this thing away, and so it only scrapes the squire's ribs as it does. By battering it away, was I able to get it on the ground? Just asking for fun. Yes, I was. Both of them are under. So extreme, yes, and positive for us with the red being higher. So you guys are patrons, you know what I'm talking about, red being higher. If not, feel free to ask me. My knight, Felorius, he swings around as this, we've knocked the winged beast away as it grazes past James, and we managed to knock it to the ground, where we now will try and squish it. James is back up with his D8 cudgel. I have my D6 beak hammer and my D4 shield. In fact, there is just one of these winged things for now. And we roll a 4, a 1, and a 2. That's not wonderful. We can't use any feats unless we try another focus, or another feat, which is perform a gambit without using a die. I think that's what I'm going to do. And the gambit is going to be +1 damage. Again, rolling to see if I save on that feat. Now it is a clarity roll, which is only 9. We get a 5. Roll it on fire. So we do 5 damage to this thing, leaving it with only 2 left. It flutters up off the ground. It does have 1 armor on the ground, actually, it says. So it has 3 left. And it turns around and it leaps now at me, doing 2d6 damage and rolling a 12 on that. So while I am a little bit... I'm surprised at the speed that it reacts and leaps off the ground straight into my chest behind my shield, taking down my 3 guard, and then doing a further 9 points of damage to my vigor. That is massive. So that takes us down to 7 hit points as well. We look down and this blade has broken off in our armor and it is sticking into our chest a little bit, and we haven't yet felt the pain, but we know it's going to hurt soon. And so we are looking this thing in its mad red eyes, and we know that this is where we have to take it down, or we're going to be in serious trouble. All of us rolling again our damage, and surely we can take this thing out now. We have an 8 on that, so we do. We're looking at the mad eyes of this thing, and we bring our claw hammer down on its head and killing it. And Felorius pulls the sliver of blade, broken off bladed wing or arm, out of his chest and throws it to the ground, and sits down heavily as he starts rooting around in his bag, or rather the squire starts rooting around in his backpack to pull out some bandages and patch us up. Fantastic. That is where I'm going to leave it today. We've explored about half the map. We've experienced bits and pieces of 2 of the myths, and I think in one more session we could finish this off. A couple of thoughts. I mean, one note is that I can recover vigor by hospitality or consuming sustenance. Now we might want to go and find something hospitable to sort of heal up before we continue our path and continue the story there. If I were to do this again and really try and finish a myth in one session, which might be a bit quick, actually, unless I was going to do like a 2 or 3 hour session. I like to keep my sessions about an hour generally. I would just have one myth closer, like halfway across the map, and just roll up on random myths for the influences on the hexes, maybe, or something like that. And really just make a point of getting to that one myth and resolving it. I really like this omen system, but I think, especially in a shorter game, I would want to have the omens be cropping up a little more frequently. And I was just thinking while I was making a coffee after that phone call, I would probably have it so that, especially in a single session or a couple of session campaign adventure, I would have it so that in addition to rolling up the wilderness roll, I would roll and give it a 50% chance that we also get the next omen. Because I do want to feel that progression towards a myth and revealing more character about this myth, which is a really cool mechanic, before finally facing the myth itself. That is it from me today on the Solo Roleplayers podcast. Thank you all for being here. This was a really nice... I don't know if it was a surprise. I was expecting this to be good, but I really had no sense of what it was. I really like this. This is a really different feeling game than what I have played before. It's still rooted in knights and medieval and that kind of thing. I have started rewatching Game of Thrones for the umpteenth time. So I'm sort of in that mood. It was a good time to do it. I really, looking at my realm that I've drawn up so far, I dislike it a lot less visually than most of the things that I draw. Mostly, I think, because of these cute little drawings that it gives me, which I can just copy. That's really nice. Really like the combat mechanic of rolling dice and then choosing what you're going to do with them. In solo combat, and because it's sort of very vague theater of the mind sort of combat, the choices maybe aren't as interesting as they could be in group play where there was more going on and more enemies, that kind of thing. I find that I would mostly be, bolstering for +1 total damage. There is move after the attack, but then I would need some more of a, if not a tactical grid, then a little bit of a layout of relative distances between things. Repel a foe away from you, stop a foe from moving the next turn, impair a weapon the next turn. Those decisions, at least in the way that I'm picturing combat and doing it now with one or two other enemies, all theater of the mind, feel a little less interesting perhaps, but that's okay. That's okay. I really like using the feats, how they work, and I think it's a really cool system. The fact that your vigor goes down, because you don't need to roll to hit, do you? So the fact that your vigor goes down is not actually affecting your combat viability as you play, which is what it looked like initially to do, where you have that getting weaker, more desperate downward funnel of combat, which can be cool, like in Kingdom Death, but can also be frustrating. Also in Crown and Skull, but I found that a little frustrating in Crown and Skull. So yeah, that's cool. Really, really like it, and you're just trying to, your vigor is lower, then that makes sense, and then you need to go off and get healed up, and the tests that you need to use strength or what does it say? Big lungs and, whatever it was, are then harder to do, which makes sense. That is Mythic Bastionland, my first play. I'm not sure if I will continue to play this on mic or off, but I do want to finish that little realm. We'll just have to see how we go. I hope you are enjoying it. I really look forward to discussing this over on the book club coming soon. That's it from me today. I am off to do some more design playtesting stuff over in Dragonbane after lunch, and I will talk to you all soon wherever I find you on the Solo Roleplayers podcast. Bye.